Tess, rumor has it you've made vacation envy a real thing here in Whitefish.
Guilty as charged. At Outside Metro, we've got everything from cozy downtown lofts to Lakeview retreats, even barns with pickleball courts. And with over 500 five-star reviews, you really can't go wrong.
What? Okay, I'm already packing my bags.
Just make sure you book direct, Julie, and save on those booking fees at outsidemetro.com. That's where the good stuff happens.
Done. Outside Metro, and stay where the locals play. The IWD406 Podcast, where Montana women are heard, celebrated, and supported. One of the things I love most about this platform is getting the opportunity to meet women who are truly living their calling. Women who have built something with grit, humility, and a deep respect for the work they do. Cress Whitman is one of those women. Cress is the founder of Horsemanship with Integrity, Performance, and Stud, a program that has grown far beyond its original beginnings. What started as a simple young horse riding and broker service has expanded into a dynamic operation that now includes reproduction, training, guiding, coaching, and horse sales, caring for more than 20 animals within her program. But what struck me most about Cress isn't just the work she does, it's the way she talks about it. She shared something with me that perfectly captures her spirit. My goal is simple, to get paid to ride my own horses. It's a statement that carries both humor and truth because beyond the goal is a life dedicated to the craft of horsemanship, the responsibility of caring for animals, and the commitment to continually grow and share what she's learned. Cress takes her role in this world very seriously. As her network continues to grow across the country, she remains grounded in the values that guide her work: integrity in horsemanship, humility in learning, and a commitment to forgiveness and respect for both people and animals. She hopes to never lose sight of those values while continuing to expand her ability to share her knowledge and style of horsemanship with others. And that is exactly the kind of story we love sharing here at IWD406. Let's get into it. Welcome, Cress, to the podcast.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so beyond honored to interview you. I know you're Pass the Mic from Laura Fisher from Revival Clothing Line. And I am interested, how do you guys know each other?
Through horses, believe it or not.
Of course.
Yep. She put an ad out on Facebook and I responded and traveled up to her house and helped her with a few things. And
she has a bunch of horses?
Yes, she does. Yep.
Okay. So when you say that, is it a horse that was unruly or she wanted the horse to do something? I know we're going to get into all this.
Yeah, there was a few horses that she just had some questions on as far as back to some fundamentals and things like that.
Awesome.
I helped. I did what I could, and then she ran with it. And she's pretty powerful, and she's savvy. She knows horses, and she can read them. And so just putting them all together and really turning them into an employee string that she used in all of her marketing. Yeah, she's a great friend, and she's done a phenomenal job with her animals.
She's a phenomenal person. She stands out for me so many different ways. And funny story, Cress, I ran into her at Under the Big Sky because she had a booth set up. She sells a really beautiful handmade clothing line. And I looked over and I'm like, wait a minute, Laura's? And I had never met her, only through just on Zoom from the podcast chat. And we just hugged each other. We cried. It just felt like I had seen my old friend. And she just has that spirit and that energy to her. And I'm really blessed and honored that she passed the mic to you. And I feel insanely, this is just going to be a cool experience for me to get to know you. So thank you so much for being here. So let's get into it. We're going to start out with a little bit of background. Are you a true born and raised generational Montanan?
I was born in Montana, or Wyoming, sorry. That kind of feels like the same sometimes, right? Wyoming's a fabulous place to be from. The wage is good. The roads are good. Mountains are a little smaller, a little less water. So I came to Montana in 2004 and shortly bailed into horses full time But yeah, and started out, was in Dillon for just a second and then in Ennis for quite a little while.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let me back up a little bit. Growing up in Wyoming, which you just mentioned is there's a lot of similarities between the West. So you're a Western girl. You're a Western born and raised girl, which is different than a Midwestern girl. I'm a Midwestern girl. So we have just different ways of living and being and all the things. So what was growing up in Wyoming? And did you dabble in horses early on? Was that when you got the bug?
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't born into a super agriculture, a ranch family, or a horse showing family, but my mom was my total inspiration. That and the Black Stallion movie. But anyway, we were homeschooled and raised pretty religious. So I realized really quickly, Baptist, right? Realized quickly that if I was riding a horse, I didn't have to wear a dress. And so would ride every day. And we had 20 acres. It just felt like a kingdom. And it was about 7 miles out of town, little town called Douglas. And we got a little brown horse from the neighbor lady. And my mom would say, I'd get my schoolwork done as fast as I could. And she'd say, as long as you stay in the bowl, there was just a natural bit of topography in the backyard where she could see me out the window. And she says, as long as I can see, you can go out and do whatever you want. So
that's pretty epic. To have that accessibility in your backyard is pretty incredible.
Man, yeah, immense. And even looking back, and I have visited the property a couple times as I've gone through life, and it looks so small. But at the time, it was, like I said, it was a kingdom. It was huge. I could go and come with this whole plan of what we were doing. We were cowboys and Indians and wild gypsies. And we were carrying the flag and singing the national anthem on my horse, just living the dream, right?
Really, can we go back to that? Because you're right, though. Everything seems so big when you're that small and your imaginations run wild. And now I feel and this could go in a totally different topic, but we won't go down this road. But I just want to get your thoughts. But I look at all the kids today and I think, where's the imagination piece? You had to have, number one, being a homeschool kid, I'm assuming during that time frame of your life, there's not a lot of homeschooling families, or were there?
No, not so much. It's come a lot as of recent. A lot of folks are really getting into that smaller scale co-op setting of school. But back then, and be what it was, right? Whether it was more of just that religious, more of that Baptist upbringing. And we were a little ways out of town. And however finances shook out, it was just easier. And my mom did a phenomenal job teaching us. And it wasn't entirely like I went to public school for high school and then off we go, right? Into the great and open. And lots of learning curves, but I'm fine. I think.
We all question that about ourselves. I think I'm fine. Maybe not. I don't know. We're all different. We're on all different journeys of life. But so when you were growing up and you got that access and that I just want to keep going with this. Everything feels wide and expansive and wild. You just got on your horse and the neighbor's horse and started toying around. Like, how did you learn how to understand your horse? They're huge. Being that small and then you have something that big. Your parents are like, yeah, go ahead and figure that out.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I see it every day in my work when I'm working with young people and horses. There's no ego. There's not a whole lot of intention. They're not thinking about bills. They're not thinking about a lot of the things that as we've grown, just become permanent in our brain, right? And so want to get on and have fun. And so up they go, right? And so like climbing a tree, you just one step at a time work your way up there. And you can feel the animal, you can feel that energy. And I think you feel it more as a younger person, right? And all these things in life aren't quite as relevant at that time. So I really see horses are receptive to young people because they make them feel comfortable and at ease. And they're just there for the moment. And horses so much in the moment that it's magic. it's just super magical. So yeah, off I went, and my mom helped me out, and I delved into 4-H a little bit there at the end, and that was good, and an entire experience of its own, but just kind of introduce you to being judged a little bit. And I had good neighbors, and I pulled it off somehow.
Yeah,
It
the
was
4-H piece, that's really interesting because you didn't own your own horse, so you did rely on the neighbors, correct? 'Cause your mom loved horses. She was a big influence for you.
She was,
So
yes, and
she
she owned horses growing up either. And
Oh,
so
okay.
peace really taught me that I could go out and find it and make it my own for whatever means to an end I needed it to be, right? I had figured out pretty early on that horses helped me breathe better and just helped me get through my days easier and all the magical things that they offer. But yes, I didn't own a horse growing up. There was some ponies, right? And then the neighbor horse, she gifted us that horse. Her name was Babe.
Oh.
And few years into it, we traded for another red horse, but this one was a fast horse. Learning curves there also, but it was great. She was a great little chestnut Arabian mare, and we went all over and back a couple times. But yes, we did end up owning horses right there, right before middle school, I would say. And then off we went with it. But
So when you got into 4-H, what was your focus? Because obviously kids, they do there's so many things you can do.
yeah, I did. Oh, I did market swine for a couple years, and that was fun.
What is
Uh,
that?
I didn't do very well at, obviously, the speed classes. I wasn't super into it. I was into more slow and steady wins the race and just making things look really good at a slower pace. So I would do all right. I did like trail classes, and then I would always win the equitation classes and things like that. And then there was showmanship. Really got introduced into the politics as
Yeah, let's
and
talk about that. That's interesting.
yeah,
What did you learn?
having the horse that knows, as opposed to having the horse that knows what you know, which
Oh,
at the time was like get on and go. And
right.
so it was awesome. It really was. And I look back and boy, I was a dork. I was quite special out there. Nothing like the rest of the kids with all the silver and the fancy stuff. My mom sewed saddle pad covers and covers for my breast collar on the horse. And I would have a matching headband, and it was great. I won. I did all right.
Yeah.
Played decently. But at that age, as you start kind of learning how to measure your successes, and I think 4-H was great for that. And
And
as the confidence to just get out there
yeah.
and you might not win, but you're going to show up and people are going to take just a little bit of a mental note as far as how it ends up. But yeah, lots
Mhm.
of learning. And
How did you feel about that? Because again, I want to go back to what you said. You're not a speed person, right? You're a slow and steady. That then tells me that you're calculated on the minute performance aspect, the details of how you're performing and and that's a little bit of a reflection of how you've trained your horse. But in speed, give me kind of the difference, like between the speed aspect versus if somebody loves the speed aspect, but also has to be measured by that versus somebody that's looking at I don't like that. I'd rather go the slow and steady route. But how do you handle being tested or judged on the minute details?
it's at the end of the day, you have to have a few goals, right? And with horses, they're pretty awesome at showing you how to reword those goals. Sometimes the last thing that you do is say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this and this. And the horse is going to tell you, okay, you can do that, but it's actually going to be in this order. So, as far as being able to be happy with the speed I was at, and there's always going to be somebody that's better at certain things. And so, when you're young and as you're bringing yourself up and developing your style, and this is who I am, and this is what I want to be, especially when you're competing, you've got to find those small successes where you're like, and you can pat yourself on the back and you can give yourself that atta girl so you can move on to the next. You can't keep riding what happened behind you. So as far as being able to find those small successes in a technical maneuver, and at that age, it wasn't incredibly technical, but when the world's that big, it's easy to find those little moments where you're like, yeah, all right, I did good. And go with it. So,
And it's good though, Chris, because I bet you saw the opposite mindset. You seem more of in the glass is half full type mindset. And early on, where do you think that influence came from? Was it your mom or dad or both?
both. Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as hanging in there and being disciplined and the attention to detail, definitely both. My dad was military, he was Coast Guard. And so, for whatever it's worth, there's a lot to be said with sticking to that daily routine or sticking to a routine when you go to work on an
Right.
annual or you have your specific goals in mind. It's a lot of, it helps definitely with that upbringing.
And your mom?
Yep. Yep. Same
Same.
way. She's the master at seeing all ends of the scenario, be it good or bad.
But we
And
move on. Some people
Yeah.
stay stuck. And I
Yeah.
bet you saw that in, it's interesting. You said the politics, but also just probably through the 4-H period. I've interviewed other women too that have did the 4-H type stuff. And I grew up in a very agricultural town, more so for cattle and pigs and all those kind of things. But you can see the performance aspect and how they handle the performance and the outcome of the performance at an early stage by being a part of 4-H, like you mentioned. And I bet you saw other people, men and young girls and young men, struggle with that. And
Yeah.
did you at the time see that, or were you like, huh? Or hey, just pull up your bootstraps, move forward? Did you feel that way, or
Yeah. I don't. It's so bad, but I learned how to accept defeat, right?
oh yeah,
How to defeat as in the end of the line. It's you did not win. Now you got to do this. And I would lead right away with some ideas of game plan going forward. And I'm not incredibly competitive when it comes to some things, but when it comes to my horsemanship, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do the research and I'm going to make sure I'm in the right circle to where I learn and I can be as good as I can possibly be. And then, depending on my horsepower, then I factor that in and I try to make this big, beautiful picture and then off we go. But you've always got to ride the horse that shows up. They have good days, bad days. We have good days, bad days. And so when it comes into that factor of you have your 2 minutes in the ring, it really helps. But yeah, no, at the end of the day or the end of the show, yeah, I would see a mix of emotions from all the different competitors.
yeah,
And that was a lesson too,
Yeah.
being able to just move off and just thankful that I got to go. I was just thankful my horse didn't run out the back end.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so there's been a lot of times I'll be like, but did you fall off? No, you didn't fall off. So at least there's a win there. And
right.
which you can build yourself up and off you go to be better the next time. So yeah, it was a great way to bring myself along that way as far as winning and losing.
Absolutely. But I also can see some foreshadowing. And I like to point this out because that's why we start from the beginning of women's lives to learn a little bit. But in that space, in the 4-H space, and seeing the politics, seeing the life lessons, it doesn't have a heavy cost to it. Fast forward to probably what you're seeing now is you're being hired for these opportunities to work with horses, train horses to have a specific outcome. There's a lot more pressure now involved. And before we get there, I just want to point that out because I want to, it gives me some ideas of how you set yourself up in life to know that you did the best that you could for your performance factors. You studied, you did the research, but there are some factors that you cannot control, right?
Yep, definitely.
And that back end piece, we're gonna later talk about that, but I want to put that little nugget in your brain of
Yeah.
how you handle the factors that you can't control, which is
Yeah.
good life lessons, right? There's
Oh,
something
yeah.
I can't control, and the outcome it really is sucks. And other people are looking at you and going, "Wait a minute." So we'll talk about that. But before we get there, I want to back up a little bit. Okay, so you went to school at a high school, and then did you still play with horses, still involved? And is this something where you starting to think, man, I want to do something with horses when I leave high school?
Yeah. Yeah. High school was probably when I did the least amount. I did my first few years in Wyoming, and then life happens, right? Family splits up. The world kind of gets a lot bigger in a hurry. And then I did my senior year down in Missouri. So total culture shock. Off we go. But I found horses right there my senior year and inserted myself upon a ranch that was there that was a bit more of a hobby ranch and was able to help out. And yeah, I really was able to tell, probably that senior year, I got to figure out some way to do this. And I would look around and I could see other people were doing it for a living. It wasn't just a hobby. And then I was seeing that they didn't own those horses. So there's a ton of leverage that I came up with as far as being able to work with young horses and really perfect my groundwork. And that's where you start them. And that's how you mold. And if you do it right, I feel that they will always reflect back on that first 30 days that they had, or that first little introduction to the fundamentals. And I was able to really tack that down. But yeah, it was enlightening for sure. The little place that I found there when I was in high school, like I said, it was a bit of a hobby situation. Yeah, property, and they were just breeding whatever. And they had an idea of bloodlines. They were Appaloosans. And so they were chasing a little bit of a guideline as far as what they wanted to be. But their situation was also dissolving. And so there was a little bit of neglect that I was privy to that really was enlightening. And so as far as being able to rescue horses, help them, and people wanting your help or not. And yeah, it turned into a thing where they didn't want me there because I wanted to help too much. And they always pray at the end of the day. I hope everything went okay. And they're all God's beings. They're okay. They're not gonna feel it the same. And it's just a little different. So you just have to know at the end of the day, you did what you could and it's gonna be okay. But yes, that senior year, and then off I went. I found a job on the internet and drove from Missouri to Arizona, and I worked with some Arabians. Same, a little bit of a hobby situation. And it was short-lived, right? I was still chasing my love life a little bit.
Of
And
course, we all do that.
Always a factor, right? Being able to balance that. But yeah, back and forth. And more, I was able to, when I would go find a horse and I just need a ride, that person would need a little help, right? And so I would just do what I could. And whether or not I was very good at explaining things at that point, I feel like I've gotten better, obviously, through coaching and teaching through communications and things like that. But if I wasn't good at explaining it, then I could just be an example and maybe show them how to get their horse to do XYZ. And then they could have a little bit of chance to go on with it and at least see that the horse was darn sure capable of doing it. It was just putting all the aids and cues together to get it to happen. So,
Cress, that's pretty freaking remarkable, being between 18 and 20 some years old. And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to go the traditional freaking path of either getting right into a job that I absolutely hate, which I've seen a lot of people do. 19, graduate, 18, graduate. And they're like, I have three options: military, job that I'm like, got to do to make a living because I got to move out of my house, or I go to the college route. You were like, yeah, I'm going to be the gypsy in the gypsy world of horses, and I'm going to go find horses. And also two, I'm going to learn how to teach the owners how to work with them with really, honestly, probably I'm assuming I may make an assumption here, but some of the horses, like this young kid coming along, thinking they can help me with their horses. Did you have any of that like pushback, or Did you have push? Did you also two-step back and go, maybe I should go these other 3 routes?
But there was a small moment. I considered Harry and it didn't roll. And that, like I said, I move along in my head pretty quick, obviously. And as far as moving cross country and doing things like that, and I would get on these horses and I would just listen to what people would say. And I would hear consistently, oh, he hasn't done that before. Or, oh, I can't get him to do that. And I would be like able to move and find those little sticky spots in an animal and iron them out real quick to where the owner or the person that was sitting there watching would see a little success that they wouldn't see at another time. And I was able to pinpoint certain things about making that horse go that looked good. And I would develop that. And I started doing my research and I started chasing specifically like what makes a horse look good. And did I really know what I was doing at that time? It was just nodding going, but I would find the things that would look good and then I would do those things. And so I wouldn't get a ton of pushback, but being able and like growing up with that work ethic and seeing like steps, all right, XYZ, this is how it's got to go, and seeing the end result, being in the right place at the right time, and just the next step, and whether I could get there to help with that step or stay out of the way, it really helped. When I started spending more time on ranches and things like that, and working cattle and things, and I just don't want to be in the way. If I help, I'm going to get there, but I didn't want to be in the way. And so I was able to kind of read the room and know when to be quiet and know when to listen. And
then just active discernment. The active discernment really, truly is something that let me ask you, do you think it's something that you just instinctively have? Or did you think you developed that and then that's what built your reputation?
It developed. Yeah, it developed. As a start where I don't want to be in the way. And so maybe or maybe not. And as you're growing up and you're kind of learning where to be in a social situation, and then you put a horse in the mix, right? And so you can tell pretty quick, oh, I got work to do. And it's, like I said, not wanting to be in the way. And so that's where it starts. Yeah. And then it develops quickly. And you'll just be able to tell pretty quick, like, all right, I can help here, or I'll be over here. I'll help if I, but I'm not going to be able to. But that's when you collaborate and you go bring somebody in that's really good at that, and you learn from that person and factor it into your style, and off you go.
Wow. I love about you and the way that you speak. It's there's things that can be had as far as learning. And I'm assuming if I was on your ranch, it's hard to convey in words what it is if you're not there and you can see it. And you mentioned that horses maintain honesty in interactions. And I kind of want to dive deeper into the lessons of horses, like what you've learned from being around horses and how they keep you honest.
Yeah, like I said, it starts like with that discernment. And yeah, it's every single lesson that you could think of when it comes to a horse. So I'm going to show the horse this, or I'm going to go do that. They're going to have their own agenda. They got to eat. They got to sleep. They got to have friends close by, or the dragons might get them. Like, that's the way they think. And so when we are inserting ourselves into their world of those few very simple things, you've got to really be polite, and you've got to have some sort of goals. And I don't want to say you can't be scared, but you've got to be very aware of all of these things. If you're scared, don't ignore it. But as far as being honest, as you're going through a day or a session with an animal and it's not going the way you want, or you're not seeing the answers that you need to see, you've just got to be really good at breaking it down and rewording it and asking again, and being really happy with the slightest try, like an ear wiggle, or you get them hit you. And you got to be happy with that sometimes. And like I said, even going through life and politics and things like that, they are incredibly good at showing you those life lessons. You're humble and you're honest enough to really accept it and then go forward with it. It's incredible. It happens every day. It's not something that, oh, I learned this in my 20s, I'm good. You have the idea of it. And so you know what to watch for. But life just keeps happening. And horses still, they just want to eat. They want to hang with their friends so they're safe. They want to relax a little bit. Some of them want to run around, the hotter bred horses or whatever, but they don't have all this other stuff going on. And so you're such an inconvenience to them. And they're like, what do you want? I just have to eat. And so being able to fall back on that, being honest with yourself and being happy with the little things along, they will turn into big things in a big way. If you throw in a bunch of releases and you're happy with yourself and seeing those little minute things as far as like with daily life, like it happens fast and sometimes it don't happen like what we want.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yes.
finding those moments and being able to work with that will turn into that big picture real fast.
Yeah. So interesting because you got to have a boatload of patience for this. And not only that, but then obviously you have to do an assessment of your own energy, right? Like when you're going to work with horses, because I'm not really around horses, Cress, and I think they're just fascinating creatures. I think if I were around them more, I would not want to be around them. I think there is this draw, and some people have it, and some people are not curious. Some people aren't. I'm more curious to it, but I do think that energy level. Obviously, they're so tapped into all their surroundings, and they have to be tapped into your energy. How do you meet them? What do you have to do things for yourself before you work with the horse? What do you do?
Yeah. I generally pray before I get on every horse. It's just a mantra, right? Lord, bless this horse, bless this ride, keep us safe, make us a bright, shining light. Big breath, lots of breathing, and just stop it. And I used to do a bunch of, and I still do, I video a lot because it's enlightening and it's humbling. And you get that third eye real easy. But there is no pressure greater than hitting that record button, right? And then everything goes out the window. And so I've found also when I get excited and I go to explaining, that horse feels the energy and they start like looking around and they feel it and they get excited. And there's oodles of research as far as our electromagnetic waves. Their heartbeat matches ours, vice versa. Like it's such a dance. And it's an internal shift that it's just an energy that if you can control it and you be around enough horses and you see all these different levels of energy, you can match it and then ask them to come to your level or vice versa. If it's a horse that has guards up and they've had a lot of failures or things like that, you've got to be careful about where you insert the disciplinary, and you got to show that tough love so you can get through and put your release in the correct spot because they've had it in the incorrect spot and you're retraining them. It's all of those things that come together where you got to trust the process. Having that little mantra, little prayer at the beginning, a quiet time. And then if you're able to go back and watch a little video and you'll be like, dang it, I didn't give her 3 seconds to think about that. Or she was doing it all along. I just couldn't feel it. And finding those quick moments, but not too long. You don't want to lose what little bit of energy that you've built up. But finding those moments just to reset, stop. And like I said earlier, as far as rewording what you were going to ask that horse to do and breaking it down so they can feel it 1 foot at a time. And then you can just start releasing when they think about it, not even when they move, then things start moving pretty quick. But yeah, there's a bunch of energy reshift that yoga or breathing. There's people out there that just specialize in kind of boxing up your energy and naming it this and being able to go right to that emotion and live in it. And those horses, they can feel that you're trying and that you're trying for a greater good and you're there to help them at the end of the day. And they really that, I think. So
That's really interesting what you just said. It's honestly to me like, it's almost like the art of learning people in a way. In the dance that you play with trying to uncover some things. And even though you just made mention that horses are relatively pretty simple in nature, they want to be fed, they want to hang out with their buddies, they want to feel protected. But once you start obviously peeling back the layers, we forget that they're pretty individualistic and they have been wounded, they have been hurt, and you have to figure out without even knowing how to speak to them, the horse language piece, which I think is another really fascinating thing that people like yourself can really tap into pretty quickly. And that, to me, that tells me more about your sensitivity to energy, knowing the rooms that you walk in, knowing the people around you that are, and the horses that are more guarded, more standoffish. Why is that? And how do I enter into the room to that with those beings around me? And I think some people have that gift of being more tapped into it. I also think women are very tapped into it. Would you agree on that? Or what's your thoughts on that?
I would agree with you. Women are just so intuitive and we do so much, right? We've got these huge schedules of all this little stuff that we've got to like XYZ, right? But as far as dealing with somebody's mental state, like horses, there's a huge physical component, right? They think a little better when they're sweating a little bit. That's why every day, and they say, oh, wet saddle blankets. And they're all a little individual, like you mentioned, but at the same time, they need to get a little tired too. We bred them to work. They have this work ethic that really you need to see it. And when it comes to the mental phase, you need to see them mentally also so they feel okay, so they can go on. People are the same way as when I'm putting it all together and helping specific people with specific horses and a specific goal. That person really needs to feel that they're being seen mentally also, whether it's fear or like an anxiety, or they can't focus because life is happening over here, or they've been, the fear failure and things like that. There's obviously a massive physical component to riding a horse, the biomechanics of it and things like that, that it's just this massive picture that you have to put together. But it's like a woman's day. We got to do all the chores. We got to take the kids. We got to make the house pretty, and you need to eat too. So then we got to feed them. And it's all those things that we're naturally on that path anyway. And yeah, like you said, that mental state, being able to walk into a room or show up to an appointment with a new client or whatever, whether you're previewing a horse for training or for sale. We want to buy this horse. Can you give us your opinion? Is it a good horse? Or, oh, I'm having heck with this. Can you help? And being able to see if the person is receptive to seeing what the answer is going to be, or it's a crazy cool angle that there are some failures, and it's not failure on the horse. It's not failure for me. And it's not always failure on the owner end of things either, but it's just, there's so many elements between the three worlds that need to come together that it's not always going to look just like you had hoped, but we work around it and we find ways to keep going. Yeah, I really agree with you when you say as far as women have that mindset, and it's just factor it in, put it on the list of things to do.
I love that. And the fact that you have all of this knowledge about the energetic piece. And have you ever in your life, I obviously know that you did a lot of work with Arabian horses, and crazy enough, I just came back from Scottsdale, Arizona, and they were having the Arabian horse show. And I thought about you immediately, Cress. And I thought, Wow, what a cool experience. Were you ever involved in those kind of things? Had you know, man? No. Okay, got you. But I did think about you while I was there. I was like, oh, I wonder if she did those types of cool experiences. But did you ever consider doing anything with therapeutic equine therapy or going after some certifications in that type of field of work?
Yeah.
You did.
I did some certifications and I went to a lot of different clinics and things like that, which I really think helped me with that energy piece and reading the different rooms as far as what horses can offer from a corporate standpoint and using horses as a tool to bring teams together or in a handicap scenario and helping kids that can't walk, can't talk, blossom a little bit and they use that horse to express themselves. It's incredible. And then also the therapeutic standpoint from like I went to a big certification at a boys' home and these kids off the streets, these were like deep city kids. And same thing. Wow, I've never seen it. And the horse just becomes this sounding board. And if hanger, like you have your horse handler and then the psych, somebody that can really translate what's happening with the client and the animal, and you come up with these experiences or goals or tasks to bring certain things to light. And so helping these people work on specific parts of their life as far as being honest and getting an answer where the horse will respond immediately. And some people have never had it so clear. And so light bulb where they see an answer and can go on through life because they saw it. And it's a very prominent world and it was still coming along. There's the assisted learning with schools and things like that. And then the therapy in the specific facilities. And so, like I said, I took what I could from all of those certifications and then I just added it into my style. And I practice a little bit of it every day. Just depends, but it's more that one-on-one lesson deal. But you'll see moments, or I'll see moments where a horse is trying to tell their owner something and you can break it down and not to get woo about it, but man, you feel it in here. And so it's something that you can't ignore. And whether or not they catch it right then and there, you never know what's going to stick. And so a few months later, maybe they'll see that light bulb. And as far as the therapy end of it, it's so powerful. It's so incredibly powerful. Any way you want to look at it, like with veterans, with the elderly, horses are just really handy at presenting scenarios that way. And like I said, it takes a good handler. And then dependent on it, it takes a little bit of a psych person that can really set things up and decipher as they go forward. But yeah, I did. I delved into that quite a bit and I learned a lot. It was a blast, really.
It would be really cool. And the fact that you've had that variety of experiences, the boys' home, which sounds like there was some profound stories that came from that. I can only imagine. And then obviously people that have disabilities. And then, like you said, corporate world, very different angles of how the horse can help. But obviously you were like, this is really cool experience, but I want to work. Did you then narrow it down, like the type of people you wanted to work with? And also having this information in your back pocket, having these experiences and knowing that emotional, energetic understanding. And then you sometimes have an owner or somebody who's removed, but they're expecting you to come in, like I had mentioned earlier, come in and create an outcome for them. How do you, number one, I'm gonna back up. How did you decide, okay, that world of equine assisted therapy or for all those pieces, did you decide, okay, I don't necessarily want to do that, but this is what I really want to do? How did you know, like, how did you pivot with that? And then once you did pivot, how do you work with people that don't have that understanding? Two questions. Sorry.
I wanted to ride,
You wanted
right?
to ride. Okay.
You're on the ground. And so I was finding ways to help people where I would end up riding also.
Okay.
I would interject small things where I was getting my little bit of therapy in and helping them where they may not have realized that they needed it. But yeah, I really wanted to ride. And so I was able to pivot a little bit, but use all of those things that I'd learned in the therapy setting and just put it together that way. Yeah.
Got you. And then so then you shifted to helping owners because you started to build that reputation out in that world. And
Yep.
they would then start, is that how they started reaching out to you, knowing you had that and your reputation was building? And then is that how you started building your business?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
That's just, it really started developing. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like one of those deals where I help who I can. I've learned to be selective on like riding outside horses for people, whether or not I'm just not as handy as I wish I was. And if I don't have enough work for a certain type of horse, they need to go to somebody that just does one thing. I do a few different things. And so I really focus on fundamentals and bringing them up that way. And then I'll get on and make my laps, I call it, and then off we go. But my mom would always say, take the horses that make you look good. And
so
smart.
Yeah.
It's common sense. And I've realized like where I can really help and where I can't. And so be it. I'm not afraid to say no. And so
dang,
move along in that world. And the people that showed up, I figured it's like letting your light shine. And you can't be afraid to jump out there. And for people that are still searching for their purpose or women, or even at my age, in my 40s, I feel like I found it early, but at the same time, I respected it and I've been blessed. I've chased it hard and I've been able to balance the passion and the practicality by being realistic, looking at numbers and staying in the right circle and things like that. But as far as going forward and the right people show up for you and being able to develop yourself off of that interaction, yeah, it's an art. But if you don't let your light shine, how the people know to find you?
exactly.
So there's a lot of that. There's a lot to that. And as far as honoring yourself and just hanging in there and getting out there and doing the research, I really feel like it's just been an overall developing art that I've been blessed to be able to go on with. And the people keep coming back. And if you're looking for those aha moments, you'll find them. But if you're not looking for the signs or whatever, then you'll just be trucking on through the day. But
Smart. Girl, you are super freaking smart. Strategy here. Like I look at your mom was right. Set yourself up for success. Your mom was right. Set yourself up for success, essentially. But also know when to discern. Say, no, that is impossible for me. Some people, it's like, it might be like breaking horses. I don't know. Some people do set themselves to think that they can do the impossible, and then it's the biggest freaking blow. But I think practicing discernment's good. Saying no to things that you're like, it doesn't light me up. But also, you've also probably have done a lot more saying yes. Yeah, I can try. I can do that.
Yeah,
I'll push myself.
I'll do what I can. And if it works, great. If not, I'll refer you to somebody else or I will try to come up with a different plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a process for sure. But yeah, and I tell people too, when it comes to horses, even if you don't know what you're doing, you got to pretend. Because if you don't know, then they sense that, just like they sense everything else. And are you going to be able to keep them safe at the end of the day? I'm going to try. And so educate yourself, get out there and do as much as you can. There are so many resources that are free that you can do to help enlighten yourself when it comes to working with horses. But at the same time, you've got to have that I got this attitude. And I'm just going to keep swimming until I get to the right river. And then everything's going to be groovy. And those horses will let's go. And they take on that teammate persona, and then it's magic. Off into the sunset you go, I guess.
I love it because I just wrote down you're setting the expectations. Set the expectations. Make sure everybody understands you have an expectation here and they have an expectation. Can it be met? This can apply to anything. Everything that you're saying, I'm like thinking of all the conversations I've had for any woman in any industry. But here's the other kicker to what I've seen now. It seems like this new age thinking of fake it till you make it. And some people are trying to dispel that. But I honestly believe, no, you need to step into those circles and exude some confidence. Okay, I'm going to figure this shit out. Like, I'm going to figure it out. And I will fake it till I make it because I'm going to make it. Because that confidence builds. And also, it gets other people to trust in your abilities. Yeah. And that reputation of what you're building, Cress, is pretty remarkable because you are known in the horse world. And I think people believe in you. And it's because you believe in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if I fail or I don't get the outcome that I thought was going to get me a blue ribbon, the second I walk out of there, I'm looking for what can I do and how can I break it down? Whether it's communications, collaboration, it's never work ethic because I'm going to do the work. I see beats talent. And it's just one of those things where just like every interaction you have with the horse, whether you're just talking about it or you're riding them or on the ground doing groundwork, you can break it down and apply it.
Yeah.
If you're honest. And
that's right.
Take it. And it's incredible. But yeah, I owe it all to the horses and all the multitude of horses. We can interact with, the more different scenarios you're going to see.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I want to talk a little bit. I want to transition into coming to Montana and starting a business up this way. You said you started back in 2004?
Yeah.
So walk me through that process of getting established here in Montana, and what does it take to do that?
There was some trial and error and how finances and things, and it all factors in, but making sure I was always on the fray of the correct network and looking at from the outside before I delved in. But of course, upon reading things, I'd read things like, you don't want a horse trainer that does it part-time, because it just goes to show that they're not good enough to do it full-time. Be as it may, as I've gone through my career, there's been injuries and there's been times where whatever, it didn't necessarily need a break mentally, but physically, break a leg, break an arm. And so I just go.
You did have that. You had that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh. We're asymmetrical. We've got a collarbone and a shoulder and a wrist and a couple knees and a couple ankles and plenty of concussions to go on top of that. But I'm okay, I think. But yeah, there's plenty of scenarios where I had to take a step back and get a job. And it wasn't because I wasn't a good horseman, but it was because I was putting myself out there. And it comes on to, it's just a matter of time with horses. There's going to be some sort of scenario. They're just too big or too much in their world. There's just going to be ways that as you develop, if you can learn ways to be safe, whether it's through coaching or equipment or a good horse, you'll up your odds. But anyway, when I decided to hang my hat out there and jump in full time, I did get a lot of pushback, and it was mostly guys that people I was dating at the time, and just not quite seeing the big picture. Was I necessarily able at that time? No, I didn't own an indoor arena. I didn't own a string of Lenson horses that could help me teach. And so, yeah, it was a process for sure. But as I went and grew and started working with certain people that had all those things, I was able to bring myself along. And then I met Jaron, my husband, in 2009 on the side of the road at a trailhead. I was riding somebody else's horse. I had borrowed somebody else's horse trailer. I think I had my brother's truck. Like, I was just some kid in their 20s looking to go for a ride in a new place. And here was this guy. And so anyway, it was immediate. It was electric, like what they talk about in the books and the movies. But
I love that.
after that was a process, putting all the pieces together. He came with his own white picket fence. And so I had to make sure my picket fence that I had dreamed about looked like his. And he's just really been so key in showing me like unconditional love and believing in me. And does he ride my horses? No. Do I ride his horses? No. He does his thing. I do mine. We both have a very similar work ethic. We're like ships passing in the night a lot of times, but we love what we do so much. He's ranching and he's project manager guy and he's running people and crews and ranches. And I'm just making 45-minute laps on horses and through the day and seeing how many people I can help without losing factor and without losing sight of he keeps me going. And so a lot of that. Like I said, when I came to Montana, there was a lot of chasing and building and evolving and things like that. But when I met him, it was enlightening as far as just sacrifices and being honest with myself as far as like, all right, what's your goal? You can't just ride in circles the whole day. Really, that's like as far as helping certain people and where can I do the most good?
It's like the perfect marrying. And I want to back up and say, I think I'm getting ready to do a dating segment on the podcast and on top of that in the new publication. And it's really fascinating. Women, and I believe men, and I haven't interviewed men yet, but I see a lot of starvation for real connection, like organic connection. Like what you just mentioned, you're on the side of the road. He shows up in his white pickup truck or whatever color it was. And it just was an instant match, an instant moment. But also I want to say, how cool is this that God brought you guys together? Because you both you're in the same community, obviously same somewhat circles, but trying to figure out how to marry that together and build something in Montana together. Did you guys, because you came in 2004 to Montana, right? Or was it 2009?
Yeah, he grew right there in West
Montana. Oh, West Yellowstone. Okay.
West Yellowstone boy. And I met him right down the road at the Kirkwood Trailhead. His family, they're like generational outfitters. So he is basically grown up in the mountains chasing elk. And then he was a wrestler. So he spent his fair amount of time in the arena. Well, arena horses and mountain horses are a far shot away from each other, but it's still a horse. And so those concepts still stay relatively the same. And we sold some horses together there for a couple years. And then we just found where our strengths were and we chased those individual strengths. And so, we could go do a bunch of business together. But I think as far as like developing something business wise between him and us, I wouldn't call it that. I would just call it like us. I felt the more work we could do to keep ourselves strong. And if home life is good, the rest of life, it rolls. And it's easier to make life roll if you've got that partner. And there was plenty of trial and error up to it. And then as we put ourselves together and we molded our families together, and I still feel like the best is yet to come as we 40s and 50s. And it's love, but it sounds cliche, but if you have love, you can do anything.
Oh, Cress, I freaking love you, man. I love everything that comes out of your mouth. And I love what you just said, because I know I like the fact that you built this really strong foundation. And I think that your whole perception in life, and this is just my opinion on the back end, is foundation super important for you, and building that out very intricately matters. And that's just going to impact everything else and the work you do, the relationships you have. And it's funny because people have asked me, my husband owns a company and it's a family business. It's been in business for many years and really lots of pride, wonderful family that he comes from. And it's interesting because the family works together. And then people are like, why don't you work for the company? I'm like, I don't know way in hell can I work with the company. He's brought me into some little things and has asked me to do some projects. And I'm like, and I thought, my goodness, I don't know if that'd be a make or breaker for us to work together. We're 20 years deep here into our marriage, but I thought to cross that line to actually work together in the business, I don't know if I could do it, but it sounds like you guys are pretty successful at it. Like,
wait, I'm like smelling what you're stepping in. Okay.
Right.
He's got all his family, so he's got it lined out. If I can kind of keep him happy at home, like he can go do his best work, and then I can go do my best work. And we don't need to work together in that capacity where we're holding hands all day long. That's just not how the cookie crumbles.
No.
So I feel like we are a power couple,
Yes.
but we're not going to be like running an indoor arena equine program together at the end of the day.
Yes.
Just, that's not our gig.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's incredible. And like I said, when I moved to Montana and I got into horses, the things that were holding me back were guys or people that didn't believe or see that big goal. And whether or not I was far enough along into my dream by the time I met him to where I could define it a little clearer, or life just put it all together. But yeah, he's been massively instrumental in my success. For sure.
That's wonderful, Cress. You are completely blessed. That's awesome. And
I'm
moving forward, tell us a little bit about your business. Talk to me about what you do and what your hopes and dreams. What's the plan?
The plan is like the breeding thing. I used to always say, leave the breeding to the people that know what they're doing. Like it's a whole thing, and you're up against Mother Nature. It's an inexact science. You can do everything perfectly, and at the end of the day, Mother Nature's still gonna have her call. And so there's a fair amount in the reproduction world where you got to pay your dues. But I'm trying to build up just enough inventory of animals to where I have a quality young horse to offer to the public, 1 or 2 a year is all I'm capable of doing outside of whoever else shows up, right? I've got a few lesson horses, and so I do some coaching that way, and I can help people specifically like as they're trying to find their journey. And it's all that fundamentals, hopefully like key in on some biomechanics and how to ride really pretty and how your horse wants you to ride. But then as far as like myself, I want to be judged. I don't want to plateau with my horsemanship. And so these young horses I'm bringing along, and then my 2 stallions I have, they're the longest I've ever owned a horse, right? I have one that's about to become 10, one that's about to become 11 years old, and I've had them since they were 2 and 3. Oh. And so they're quite finished, and I go and show them outside of breeding season when their schedule allows.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just a really good testament to how I want my horses to look. And yeah, I want to do some shows, and I really like the working equitation because it embodies obviously equitation and then an obstacle course. And then you get to do a little bit of speed, but it's still combining all of those elements. And so you're able to really show a well-rounded horse.
Is that when, I don't mean to interrupt, but is that when you're in these spaces, is that an opportunity to sell what you do because you're demonstrating essentially, right? So do you have to do those shows in order to keep building?
1 or 2? Yeah.
1 or 2. Yeah, a year.
Yeah. 1 or 2 with a young horse and 1 or 2 with a finished horse in my mind. And I don't need to win, but I'm going to show up and people are darn sure going to look at my animal because I'm breeding for the package deal. They're good looking. They're really, hopefully, moving around nicely. And they're just showing an overall versatility that's going to go back to program as a whole when it comes to my horsemanship. Like I ride English, I ride Western, I do a bit of driving, and then obviously the groundwork. And I think that covers the basis quite a bit without doing like trick riding or vaulting or delving into the speed events. I feel like if I'm really good at going slow, if I had to go fast, I can do it and I can get the job done if I need to, but it's not going to be the end all and be all for my program. Yeah. And as far as like the business name, performance and stuff, yeah, I need to get out there and show that my horses are definitely performance horses to some degree. I'm breeding draft cross horses, which some people will call the American warm blood. And so they're big and they're typey, but they're not too heavy or too coarse or clunky, but a little more on the sport end of things where they could go run and jump and turn and burn and do those athletic things is what I'm working on.
What's they're working?
If I'm able to show up and it'll all come back to program in some way, shape, or form, people are going to want to try to get that package look also for themselves.
Yes.
And
Do you have a place where, let's say, so obviously you're breeding them and then you're also working with handlers or owners as far as performance goes? Maybe, or do you do anything like cattle cutting, or is that kind of not in your wheelhouse? Because I know my niece, they have to go to far places to find specifically what they're looking for.
yeah, the cattle are hard to get to. And as we all know, cattle market's pretty high right now.
Yeah.
And finding French cattle to cut is tough. The ranch that my husband manages and I help out on, we have about 700 head of mama cows right now. And so we're calving.
Okay.
We can do some stockmanship things. And as far as being able to go and work cattle, it's slow and easy. But there's lots of alleyway work. We have shoot houses that are going. We'll be testing next week. There's branding. There's all the daily ranch activities and chores done that I feel like fundamentally we can add in. And then as far as going down the road and offering a horse that's really good to a specific thing, yeah, they'll have had a lot of real blue collar exposure to it.
Yeah.
And should be able to go on and be workmen on that level. But yeah, it's
Cress,
not.
do you travel all over, or do people come to you mostly?
It's a mix.
And mix.
Season. This winter's been a little non-existent, but winter generally I will go find an indoor arena and I'll work out of that indoor quite a little bit. And then I'll save outside horses, and horses that I can help for training will come to me in the summer because I'll be breeding. And so morning and night, I'm working outside mares and making sure that I can get my breeding clients fulfilled and that contracts got their fair shot to getting the baby horse on the ground for that person. But yeah, it shifts a little bit. And I don't have an indoor arena of my own. And I don't know if that frees me up a little bit, because if I did, I would probably just have a cot in the corner and Jaron would bring me coffee out and then he would leave.
Yeah.
But I go around and I really value that, because there's a lot of people that I want to help that haven't put together all the things yet. Oh, I have access to a trailer, but I don't have a trailer. I can't get my horse in the trailer. Can you come help me? So being able to travel, it really helps that aspect of it. But yeah, I do a fair mixture of both for sure.
Wow. And we could be going down so many different paths. I'm curious about the breeding process. I'm curious about how you build out your fundamentals program. I'm curious about all things, but what I'm really curious about is what's your favorite part of all of it?
Oh man, just riding my own horse.
And your own horse, is it one of the two stallions?
It changes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I pick from, and that's saying it lightly, right? I love coaching kids. I love watching, and there's so many little girls running around that watching that flower bloom is incredible. And I just love seeing that feeling that I get bloom out in somebody else, whether it's male or female, whether it's a horse or a human, just being able to share my gift. And as far as producing young horses, it's a blast, right? Because I know what I got. The industry can be a little cutthroat as far as the prettier the horse, the more questions you better ask. And there's an element of history that you're never going to get, right? And so when you're putting all the things together and I'm trying to decipher what my favorite part is, it's cliche, but it's all of it, right? And it's just being able to offer my gift of knowledge and being able to read a horse, maybe mentally and physically, and then line somebody up for success to where they, and have some fun and be safe on that animal, whether I produced it or not. It's all full circle and it's all so great.
So great. And to get obviously, you just mentioned that your dream is getting an indoor arena. I want to know a little bit about what that space would look like for you and what it would represent. Is it your pinnacle? Is it the pinnacle part of your life? Is it like the bucket list that you got to check off and you're like, I did it?
No. Yeah, because I call it the arena roulette. And I've lived my life going between facilities as they're available, or like property sells, or somebody decides they want to keep it private, or they're not making enough money off of this, or it doesn't feel like their own facility anymore. So there's a lot of that. Like I said, it feels like a bit of a failure, but you just move on and you go find a different spot. And I've always been able to make it work in some capacity. If I don't get an indoor arena of my very own, I'll survive. It is incredibly, I can get so much more done if it's right there and I don't have to trailer to it. And there will be little barriers and things like that I've got to work around, but it's all fine. And it's just a scheduling thing at that point. Yay. The scheduling's my favorite. But
how to get you to your dream? How do you get there? How does one create that?
Just keep doing what I'm doing and just keep for it. What my husband and I do on a cool little chunk of property here in Whitehall, and it's not ideal, but it's cash in the bank. And so as opportunities arise and things develop, then we'll just take it as it comes. And like I said, if I don't get one, I'll be all right.
You're going to get one. I can feel it.
I'm in some stuff here as I age. And like I said, I don't want to say as I ride less, but as I get more and more picky when I do ride, and I start really being able to build a solid culture out of all these kids that I'm working with. I call them barn rats. I need some barn rats. And you get these horse crazy kids running around. And same thing, it just all goes back to sharing the gift and being able to keep it going. And
I feel like that's the legacy you're leaving. I think you're doing it. Like, despite the fact that there's a physical piece, a building or an arena, you're already doing that. Do you feel, I want to say this, do you feel like a legacy? Do you feel like, honestly, like a legendary type person that's made an impact in this community?
Not quite yet.
Oh, come on.
Pieces of it though, right? And like I said, the more I step out and collaborate with people and verbalize my gift, and I don't just get on and I'm able to show it, I'm able to explain it also. It's very powerful. And I'm really able to see like whether or not people really remember me for that long. Hopefully the knowledge that I've been able to impart with is substantial. And hopefully out on the legacy end of things, people are just able to use that knowledge at the end of the day. They might not know where it came from, but it's been passed down enough. And I was able to share that gift with the right people and to just keep that game going where you can go get on just about any horse and have a good ride and be safe. That's pretty key also. But that's what I figured coming on.
I love that. Wow, man. And I hate to say it, but we're getting down to our last few questions, Cress. And I could probably have several different chats with you. We didn't even dive into the horse breeding world and just horse language and all the things. I just wanted to get you on here just to hear your story. I love the way you think. I love the way you express yourself verbally. I'm anxious to see how you do it. And I want to see your craft because it's legendary. I've heard your name buzzing all over the place. So I do know that you've made a lot of impact in Montana alone.
Yeah, so, I want to, and I always tell people just show up. I'm always riding somewhere, and I generally have a second horse that I can stick somebody on, then off we go. And it's like I said, it might not be therapeutic on a level of what some people would be able to write down, but you're going to feel it. And that's the magic of the horse, right? Is being able to. So
I love that. All right, we're down to just a few questions. And the first one is, what's something people assume about horse girls that is completely wrong?
oh, most of it might be spot on. I don't know. We're pretty driven by that horse, and sometimes it comes across as crazy, but I don't know. It's one of those deals. We're always kind of willing to take a little help. And so you can get sucked right into it pretty easy when you run into a horse girl. Oh, that sounds like a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh,
no.
that's I love that. I love that. Okay, my second question is, have you ever had a horse, and we touched point on this a few times, but have you ever had a horse completely humble you, and can you tell us what happened?
Oh, man, daily. Daily. And I think the biggest part to me is when I was able to put that video analysis with it, and I was able to see it. And like I was having a bad day. I was riding for an old rancher who was teaching me, like, you know what you're doing, but this is what you're doing. And he gave me she wasn't spicy, but it was a gray mare. And I don't know if you've heard about, what they call her, the hell bitch off of Lonesome Dove, the old HB. So gray mares are pretty, mules love them. Mules love a gray bell lead mare or whatever, but he was videoing because we were going to sell this horse in the long run. And he was trying to teach me a maneuver, and I couldn't feel it. But by God, I got home that night and I could see it. And she was doing it all along. And so there's been 100 moments like that. But that's the one that I always go back to mentally. The horse's name was Perry. And she
Okay.
was a big cowbred, super typey, gorgeous dapple gray mare. And I think she went to Alaska. Anyway, 100 years ago it feels. But yeah, it happens quite a little bit. But being able to feel it is,
And what is the feeling? Because I used to explain it, and I'm like, what is that? Like, now when you said that, was she tricking you? Can they do those kind of things? And you're trying to break her, and she's already got this lady. What are you trying to do to me?
like riding a horse, right? You want to get control of their feet. And there's a
Okay.
sequence. There's 4 of them, correct? And so I get lucky getting by with 2. If I had to deal with 4 legs, I'd be on my face. But anyway, getting control of those feet for maneuvers, for stop, go, turn this way, turn that way. We're all doing the same thing, but getting control of those feet to where it's the athletic maneuver that they come out of their mother doing. Like, we're not teaching them something they don't know how to do. They travel that way. But getting it when you want it, how you want it, and then how fast you want it, that's the key. And so that was where I was trying to teach her an element of a turnaround. And she already knew it, but I couldn't feel it. And so I kept asking, and she kept doing it, but I couldn't feel it, like through my seat or like my core and all of those things. And so it was pretty neat as far as a feel when you're like actually getting control of the feet. When a lot of other people talk about feel with horses, it's in here. And it's being able to, like we were talking about, matching that energy and being able to match your steps with theirs and being able to see them mentally and not biting off more than they could chew. And I'm going to all this stuff. And they're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
So the feel and being able to present a scenario that's not going to be too much.
Oh, that makes sense to me. And thank you for explaining that, because like I
Yeah.
said, I haven't been exposed to horses. I've been on maybe a few trail rides, a few. And the horse knew I was a chump. I got on and it was like, yeah, you're not in control, lady. You cannot control me from stopping. But as soon as the lead guy was like, holy, knocking off, it's like they knew, she knew or whatever. I didn't have any control. I need lots of lessons. I always wonder, what's the feeling? I want to say avatar with your horse, essentially, like the movie Avatar. You watch these people, and my niece is a great example where she was working with her horse, and it was like, she just knows every single thing about it. and worked with him for many years and recently sold him to get another horse because she's continuing to show and build. And I'm like, what does that even mean? She's just, he hit his limit. He hit his limit. So it happens. And it's, how do you know all these things? And she's, I just know it's a feeling. And I'm like, what is that feeling? And I guess it's similar to, yeah, it's really amazing. And you've done such a great job of explaining those kind of things to our listeners, because some people are going to be listening in and they're going to be completely familiar. They have horses. They love horses. It lights them up just to even listen to you talk. And some people are like, I don't know anything about horses. And I'm one of those people that I'm like, I'm just so curious. I'm horse curious. And I just need to be around them more because they seem so beautifully tapped in, and energetically it fascinates me and what they can pick up and what maybe I'm not picking up for myself that they're sensing, right? How is that being translated and mirrored? Yeah. So anyway, but thank you so much for answering that. Now we're down to our last question. And before we go there, I just want to say thank you so much for just spending some time with me today and sharing your story, Cress. I was really excited about getting an opportunity to meet you. I've heard a lot about you in this community, in the Montana communities. And like I had mentioned before we got on in this call, you're just a very unique person that's been given this beautiful gift in life. And I think you knew it from a very early age and you didn't waver from it. And that's really, sometimes we all go on these different paths in life and we go astray and feel, you just seemingly were gifted something and you just inherently knew it and you've done everything in your power to protect it, but also give it to other people, right? Let other people see it, let people in. So thank you so much for that.
Before we pass the mic, we want to pause and recognize the businesses that make this space possible. Pass the Mic sponsorship on the IWD406 podcast is more than advertising. It's a commitment to Montana women supporting Montana women. As a Pass the Mic sponsor, we create a custom audio commercial for your brand, giving you triple exposure on the podcast, across our digital platforms, and on YouTube, all as evergreen content that lives long beyond a single episode. Right now, businesses can receive 12 podcast episodes for the price of one. If you believe in honoring Montana women's history, amplifying their stories, and supporting a platform that truly invests back into the community, we love to work with you. Contact IWD406 today at www.iwd406.com. And now, let's pass the mic.
Our last question is, we believe in amplifying the voices of remarkable women. If you could pass the mic to a Montana woman to share their story on the IWD406 podcast, who would she be and why?
I'm going to pass the mic to Eugenia Rizzano. Met Eugenia through a raffle item at a fundraiser, and it was for a haircut. And you ladies, we all know how valuable a good hairdresser is. Anyway, I've been using Eugenia for quite a few years now. She's a Montana native. She's a mule girl, and she's just got this light, and she's great. She's comforting, and she's mellow, but she's pretty fierce also. So that's who I am passing the mic to. She's got a cool little hair salon there in Bozeman. She's a one-woman show, and she does well.
Oh, I love that. So she's a female solo entrepreneur.
Yes.
In Bozeman, Montana, which I was just there last week, and I cannot get over that place is just growing like crazy.
Yeah, she's seen a lot. She's been there a long time, and she's a little older than me, so obviously she's even seen it way back when it was a cowboy town.
Oh, for sure. I love that. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to meeting her and learning her story. And if you guys you know her and she knows you, this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, she's a cool cow.
Thank you so much, Cress. You're wonderful. And where can people go and learn a little bit more about you guys? Is there a website that they can go to?
Yeah, I've got a website. It's horsemanshipwithintegrity.com. And I have a presence on basically all the social platforms that really matter. There's Instagram. It's just under my name, Cress Whitman. Or the Integrity Performance Stud has a page. And then Facebook also. So
Perfect. Thank you so much. And you guys that are listening, go check her out. And stay tuned for our next podcast guest. Thanks again, Cress.
You're welcome. Thanks, Miss Julie.
A special thank you to our podcast guest. You can find all of her links in the description of this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. You will be notified of future podcast guests. Follow us on our social media platforms and stay tuned for our next podcast chat with an amazing Montana woman.